What if I told you that the biggest obstacle between you and your dreams isn't your circumstances, your resources, or even your abilities? What if the only thing truly holding you back is the story you keep telling yourself? Today, I'm going to share a story that will challenge everything you believe about positive thinking. This isn't about fake smiles or pretending problems don't exist. This is about a real transformation that happened when one man stopped being a victim of his thoughts and became the architect of his reality. Meet David Chen, a man who lost everything and discovered that the power to rebuild his life had been inside his mind all along. His journey will show you that positive thinking isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing which reality you're going to create. David stared at the eviction notice taped to his apartment door. 30 days. That's all he had left before he'd be homeless. 6 months ago, David had been a successful software engineer with a comfortable salary, a beautiful apartment, and a promising future. Then the tech company he worked for went bankrupt overnight. 200 employees lost their jobs in a single day, and David was one of them. At first, he told himself it would be temporary. He had savings. He had skills. He'd find another job quickly. But as the weeks turned into months, rejection after rejection began to reshape his identity. The confident engineer became an anxious job seeker. The optimistic problem solver became someone who saw obstacles everywhere. David's internal dialogue had become toxic. Nobody wants to hire someone my age. The tech industry has moved on. I'm washed up at 35. This is never going to get better. Every morning, he woke up with a knot in his stomach. Every evening, he went to bed replaying his failures. His mind had become a prison, and he was both the prisoner and the guard. The stakes were brutally real. David had burned through his savings. His credit cards were maxed out. He had no family nearby to help him. In 30 days, he would lose his home. And somewhere deeper, more terrifying than homelessness, was the fear that he had lost himself, that the negative thoughts circling his mind had become his permanent reality. His best friend Jake had stopped calling after David canceled their plans for the 5th time in a row. His confidence was gone. His motivation was gone. And worst of all, his hope was disappearing too. David stood at a crossroads. He could surrender to the negative spiral, let circumstances define him, and accept defeat. Or he could find a way to fight back, not just against his situation, but against the thoughts that were destroying him from the inside out. On day 23 before eviction, David hit rock bottom. He had $15 in his bank account, half a box of pasta in his kitchen, and 0 job prospects. He sat on his floor, staring at his laptop screen, too defeated even to apply for more jobs. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Dude, I know you're going through hell, but I'm not giving up on you. Coffee tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'm buying. Don't say no." David almost declined. What was the point? But something about Jake's persistence made him reconsider. The next morning, dragging himself out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. But he went. Jake was waiting at their usual cafe with 2 coffees and an unusual expression. Not pity, but determination. "I've been watching you destroy yourself for 6 months, Jake said bluntly. "And I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. Your biggest problem isn't that you lost your job. It's that you've lost control of your mind." David bristled. "You don't understand. I've applied to over 200 jobs. The market is tough, I know," Jake interrupted. "But you know what's tougher? Listening to you talk. David, every word out of your mouth is negative. Every thought you share is about what's wrong, what's impossible, what's never going to work. You've become the narrator of your own disaster story." The words stung because they were true. Jake pulled out a worn paperback book from his bag, Man's Search for Meaning, by Viktor Frankl. "My therapist gave me this when I was struggling with depression. It's about a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps. If anyone had an excuse to think negatively, it was him. But you know what he discovered?" David shook his head. He discovered that even when you can't control your circumstances, you can always control your response to them. He wrote, Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Jake looked directly into David's eyes. You've given up that space, man. You've let your circumstances dictate your thoughts, and your thoughts dictate your actions. But it doesn't have to be that way. David went home that day with the book and a strange feeling, not quite hope, but maybe the memory of what hope felt like. That night, instead of doom-scrolling through job boards, he read. Frankel's story shook him. Here was a man who had experienced unimaginable horror, who had lost everything including his family, and yet he found meaning and purpose by choosing how he interpreted his experiences. One quote hit David like a lightning bolt. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. David realized something profound. He had been waiting for his circumstances to improve before he could think positively. But Frankel's message was the opposite. Change your thinking, and your circumstances will follow. The next morning, David decided to try an experiment. Instead of waking up and immediately thinking about everything wrong in his life, he would spend 5 minutes deliberately choosing different thoughts. He wrote in a notebook, 3 things I'm grateful for. 1. I have a friend who cares enough to challenge me. 2. I have skills that got me a great job once and can do it again. 3. I have 30 days, which is 30 opportunities to change my situation. It felt ridiculous at first. Forced. Fake. His negative mind screamed that this was just naive positivity, that gratitude doesn't pay rent, that he was delusional. But David persisted. Every morning, 3 gratitudes. Every evening, he wrote down one small win from the day, even if it was just, I sent out 3 quality applications, or I learned a new programming framework. After 1 week, something subtle began to shift. David noticed he had more energy. Not much, but enough to make it through the day without collapsing into despair. His job applications started to change too. Instead of desperate, generic cover letters, he began writing with more confidence and clarity. 2 weeks before eviction, David got a call back for an interview at a startup. It wasn't his dream job. The pay was lower than his previous position, and the company was small and risky. The old David would have seen it as beneath him. But the new David, the one practicing positive thinking, saw it differently. An opportunity, a chance, a door opening. The night before the interview, doubt crept back in with a vengeance. His negative mind launched a full assault. You're going to mess this up. You're out of practice. They'll see you're desperate. You haven't worked in 6 months. They'll think something's wrong with you. David felt the old panic rising. But then he remembered what he'd learned. These thoughts weren't facts. They were just thoughts. And he could choose different ones. He pulled out his notebook and wrote a new script. I have valuable skills and experience. I've overcome challenges before. I'm going to walk into that room as someone who solved problems for a living. And I'm going to show them how I can solve their problems too. Whatever happens, I'll learn something valuable. He read it out loud 10 times before bed. The next morning, David looked at himself in the mirror. He wasn't the broken man from a month ago. His posture was different. His eyes had something they'd been missing. Not naive optimism, but grounded determination. The interview was tough. They asked hard technical questions. They challenged his career gap, but David didn't spiral. When they asked about his unemployment, he told the truth. I lost my job through no fault of my own, and I'll be honest, it shook me. But I've spent these months not just looking for any job, but figuring out what kind of problems I want to solve and what kind of company I want to build with. I've used this time to upgrade my skills and clarify my values. I'm not the same engineer I was 6 months ago. I'm better. The interviewers exchanged glances. David couldn't read them. David walked out of that interview with no idea whether he'd get the job. The negative thoughts tried to push through. You probably didn't get it. They were just being polite. You should have answered that third question differently. But David had developed a new skill, the ability to observe his thoughts without being controlled by them. He acknowledged the doubt, then chose a different narrative. I did my best. I showed up with integrity. Whatever happens, I'm proud of how I handled that. And if it's not this job, it'll be the next one. 3 days passed. No call. The eviction date was now 7 days away. On the 4th day, David's phone rang with an unknown number. His heart pounded. David, this is Patricia from Nexus Solutions. We'd like to offer you the position. Relief flooded through him, but the conversation wasn't over. However, Patricia continued, I need to be honest with you. The salary is lower than what you made before, and we can't start you for 3 weeks because we're finalizing funding. I know that's not ideal, but I'll take it, David said immediately. Patricia paused, surprised. Don't you want to think about it? I don't need to, David said. You are offering me the chance to work on meaningful problems with a team that asks hard questions. That's worth more than a higher salary at a company that doesn't value what I bring. Thank you for the opportunity. After hanging up, David sat in silence. The job didn't solve his immediate eviction problem. He still had 1 week to figure that out. But something more important had happened. He had proven to himself that his thoughts had power. By changing his mindset, he had changed how he showed up. And by changing how he showed up, he had changed his outcome. That evening, David did something he hadn't done in months. He called Jake. I got a job offer, he said. That's incredible, man. I knew you could do it. There's just one problem. The eviction is in 7 days, and the job doesn't start for 3 weeks. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, How would the new David, the one who practices positive thinking, approach this problem? David smiled. Jake was right. The old David would have panicked. But the new David knew that every problem had potential solutions. He just had to stay calm enough to find them. David spent that evening brainstorming solutions with his transformed mindset. Instead of thinking, this is impossible, he asked, what are all the possible ways this could work? He called his landlord and explained his situation honestly. He had a job offer starting in 3 weeks, and he asked if there was any flexibility on the eviction date. To his surprise, the landlord, who had seen David's positive attitude improvement over recent weeks, agreed to a 2-week extension if David could pay a partial payment now. David sold his gaming console, some furniture, and his old photography equipment, things that once defined him, but that he realized he didn't need. He cobbled together enough for the partial payment. He reached out to Jake, who offered his couch for the gap week between eviction and his first paycheck. David accepted with gratitude instead of shame. Most importantly, David kept practicing positive thinking every single day, not as a magic solution, but as a mental discipline that allowed him to see possibilities instead of only problems. 3 months later, David was thriving at Nexus Solutions. His positive mindset had become his greatest professional asset. While other team members complained about challenges, David reframed them as opportunities to learn. When projects hit obstacles, David's optimistic problem-solving approach made him invaluable. His boss pulled him aside one day. David, I don't know what happened to you before you came here, but whatever it was, it made you into someone special. Your attitude is infectious. The whole team performs better when you're around. David realized the truth. Positive thinking hadn't magically solved his problems. Instead, it had given him the mental clarity, energy, and creativity to solve them himself. He started mentoring other people going through career transitions. His message was simple. Your thoughts are not facts, they're choices, and every time you choose a thought, you're choosing the kind of life you're going to live. 6 months after hitting rock bottom, David wrote in his journal, I used to think positive thinking meant pretending everything was okay. Now I understand it means something different. It means believing that no matter what's happening, I have the power to respond with clarity, creativity, and courage. That's not naive optimism, that's practical wisdom. If you're watching this video today, maybe you're going through your own version of what David experienced. Maybe you've lost something important, a job, a relationship, your confidence, your direction. Maybe the voice in your head has become so negative that you can't remember what hope feels like. Here's what I want you to understand. Positive thinking isn't about denying reality. It's about refusing to let reality define you. Your circumstances are temporary. But the thoughts you choose become your permanent mental environment. If you fill your mind with negative narratives, you'll live in a prison of your own making. But if you practice choosing empowering thoughts, even when it feels forced, even when it feels fake, you'll gradually transform not just your mindset, but your entire life. The science backs this up. Neuroplasticity shows that your brain physically changes based on your habitual thought patterns. Every time you choose a positive thought over a negative one, you're literally rewiring your neural pathways. You're not just thinking differently, you're becoming different. So here's your challenge. Starting today, commit to one simple practice. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you think about your problems, write down 3 things you're grateful for and 1 empowering belief about yourself. It might feel ridiculous at first. Your negative mind will fight back. But keep going. Do it for 30 days and watch what happens. Remember, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is your power to choose. And in your choice lies your freedom. Your circumstances don't define you. Your thoughts do. And your thoughts? Those are the one thing you always have the power to change. Stop waiting for your life to get better before you start thinking positively. Start thinking positively and watch your life get better. The transformation David experienced isn't special or unique. It's available to every single person who decides to take control of their mental narrative. It's available to you, right now, in this moment. Your negative thoughts want you to believe you're stuck. But you're not stuck. You're just standing in one place, waiting for permission to move. Consider this your permission. Move. Choose different thoughts. Transform your mindset. And watch as the life you've been dreaming about starts becoming the life you're actually living. Thank you for watching. If this story impacted you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your mind is the most powerful tool you'll ever own. Use it wisely. Now go out there and prove to yourself what's possible when you harness the power of positive thinking.